This is the part where we talk Rabbit R1. I'm holding the Rabbit R1 here. David is also holding a Rabbit R1. Andrew
This is where I would be holding
one.
if I had one.
For those unfamiliar, the Rabbit R1, how do I describe this? So there's a new category of device. It is hardware focused on AI. I guess that's the best way to put it. Hardware driven by AI. The most recent of which is the infamous Humane AI pin that you might have seen. I reviewed it. It was not good. The other that's coming out in a staggeringly similar timeline, or at least within a few weeks of the AI pin, is this, the Rabbit R1. They are supposed to be able to do a lot of the same stuff, but they do have some very notable, obvious differences. And it's kind of like, it reminds me of when the Tesla Model S came out, and then every electric vehicle for the next 4 years was compared to the Model S, whether or not they were even remotely in the same category. It would be like, here's a F-150 Lightning versus Tesla Model S. It's like one of them is a pickup truck, but because they're in the same category of electric, they just get compared to each other.
Yeah.
So the Rabbit R1 is different from the Humane pin.
It has a screen.
It has a screen. It's the size of like a postage, I would say like a Post-it note stack, roughly.
That's a way better
Great.
analogy.
Holy hell, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
What have people been saying that it's the size of? Like a phone?
It's like half the size of a phone.
It's also like a Galaxy Z Flip.
That's exactly when it's full.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It has a camera that swivels. It is not wearable, at least without additional accessories. It's supposed to be in your pocket. It has a button.
Belt clip with this would be fire.
It would be fire.
Could be. It is a touch screen. It does not make phone calls or send text messages, but it does have a SIM card tray for cellular data.
4G.
4G data.
Yeah.
But the idea is mostly the same, that you're carrying around AI in a separate box from your phone with you to do some things that you don't do on your phone.
Yeah.
That's the high level of what this is. There are obvious upsides and downsides.
Yeah.
Upside being could do some cool, neat stuff and be very helpful. Downside being now you charge twice as many things. Now you carry twice as many things. Now you spend twice as many dollars. But I will say the Rabbit is $200 and does not have a monthly subscription until you buy a data-only SIM, and then you have a monthly plan. Unlike the Humane Pin, which was $700, $700 or $800, plus the $24 a month for the services and data that comes with it. So I think they're going to lean into that as being their number one differentiator. Is it's much cheaper, and I'll tell you right now, it makes sense holding it exactly why it's cheaper. This is a very basic screen. It is made of, I believe it's plastic.
Yeah,
I'm going to
plastic.
double check, but it's this bright neon orange. It's collab and design with Teenage Engineering. But it's not like this hunk of metal or anything crazy like that. And the processor and internals are very minimal.
MediaTek.
It comes in a cardboard box with a plastic shell around it, and it doesn't even come with a brick or a cable. Like it's obviously they're making money just on the hardware here. Fine. But what does it do? Would you actually carry this? These are very early impressions. We picked it up last night.
Yeah.
It's been sitting here in the studio for less than 3 hours. What are your initial thoughts, David?
So I want to talk about what the dream of what this product is supposed to be.
I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. So their whole thing, which is very different from the Humane AI pin, is they have a thing called the large action model.
Yeah.
And the idea there is when new products come out, this happens with like Razer all the time. They'll come out with some new like, oh, we put new RGB lights in this. And if a game developer wants to, they can plug into our open API and use it. And then one game uses it because they partner with them to use it and nobody else uses it.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to build out a product based on an open API, but you're a new product, Uber doesn't care about you. Like nobody cares about you, right? So their whole idea is, we're not going to deal with APIs. We're going to learn how people use web apps on their computer, and we're just going to teach an AI how to click things for it. So it's going to do semantic segmentation to understand what buttons are, what icons are, so that if you train it enough, it can click. When you say, play this on Spotify for me, it'll, in the cloud somewhere, click around the fake buttons on the Spotify in the cloud to start playing it on the device. This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
From a high level.
I will say between the humane AI pin and this like fundamental idea that the rabbit should eventually get to, I love.
Me too.
Because this whole thing, and I talked about this in that last video, is I want an assistant that I can treat like a human assistant.
Yeah.
I don't have a human assistant, but what I want is to be able to talk to this device like a human, for it to understand me like a human, and then it can go do things like a human.
Yeah.
And if I were to get a human assistant, you would also theoretically need to train them to do certain things. Like the first time I ever say, hey, can you book flights? They're like, okay, well, do you like window seats or aisle seats? What airlines, what, airport do you prefer? All that stuff. But once you train them once or twice, they should just get it and be able to do it.
Yeah.
And that is exactly how you treat this idea.
Right.
It should just be able to do whatever you can do because it's doing the same actions that you would do, and it takes that off your plate. And if you ever need to train it, it should be able to accept that training and do more stuff. So fundamentally,
Yes.
even though
High-level
it doesn't
idea.
have any apps or any APIs, it can interact with things the same way you can, and I love that part.
Yeah. In the AI space, they call these agents. Rabbit is calling them rabbits, which is it's just an agent.
Cool.
Yeah. So, when you teach your rabbit how to do stuff for you, you do have to train it how to use a website or an app, right? Because it's basically based on like web apps and like computer apps. And the high level idea is that there's like a training suite where you basically record your screen and it learns how you click on things. So during the keynote last night, they gave a demo where they were training it how to buy an iPhone for you on Amazon. So they basically like recorded the screen of the person going on Amazon, searching iPhone 14, clicking add to cart. Now, the problem right now is that the approach they're taking is very similar to the Tesla full self-driving approach.
Which is it needs to see every situation to learn it.
Correct. And when Tesla sold cars that were cars first, and then something that was happening that the cars were just doing in the background that people didn't have to manually do themselves, was it was recording all of the drives.
It was seeing a bunch of situations and how the human handled it.
Yeah. And it was also able to like recognize objects by just taking in an insane amount of data and putting that in the cloud and using that as a model.
It didn't even necessarily, this is just semantics, but it didn't even necessarily recognize the object. Like it doesn't see a stop sign for the first time and go, what is that? And then the human stops and it goes, oh, stop sign.
Yeah, they weren't
It
tagged.
never even knows that it's a stop sign. It just goes, when I see that again, this is my behavior because this is how you're supposed to handle this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes sense. But the fact that was like people were just buying the cars anyway because they were like trendy and electric and cool. And then that was an additional thing that was happening in the background. The thing with Rabbit is when they first announced it, they showed off the training program, the training model, and all this stuff. And theoretically, they have 800 apps trained. The problem right now is something they said last night at the keynote is for every app that you train, you have to develop an interface to interact with the app on the screen on the Rabbit. And that takes a lot of UX design man hours.
Yeah.
So what they want to do, what they're building towards, is a generative UX thing where you train the thing, it automatically knows, oh, this is a music app, oh, this is a shopping app, and it develops the buttons on the device itself. This is a little bit of a letdown because currently, besides being able to do all the ChatGPT stuff that it, because it's a ChatGPT box, basically, and answering your questions, whatever, it currently connects to 4 apps. Spotify, DoorDash, Uber, and Midjourney.
So these are the ones where the experience is fully built out the way they want it to be.
They have a UX on the device for that experience.
So that means, like taking Spotify, for example, I pull up the Rabbit and I start to ask for a task from Spotify, and it has a screen on it so that if I do need additional input, I can interact with it there. So like I say, hey, pull up and play the most popular song from Hans Zimmer's discography. And then it goes, well, here's the most popular one. Do you want to play the second most popular one too? And that's how you interact.
Do you want me to
with
demo it right now?
it. Sure.
I mean, we would have to
because it's
bleep it
gonna
out.
Sure, but the point is it has a screen.
Yeah.
And unlike the Humane pin, you can directly interact with it on the screen right away.
Yeah.
Because there's a little UI built.
Yeah.
But that's only for these 4 apps. And for all of the rest of the hundreds, you either can't make any adjustments or you just kind of have to trust that what it's doing is what you want.
Yeah. Are there any music artists that we're whitelisted on this channel for that I can play?
Vainsil, you can do Vainsil.
Yeah. Okay.
It's also an interesting name if it understands it.
Play the best songs from 20 SYL.
Okay, starting the music player now.
Okay. So it's playing a 20 SYL song. You can see it on the screen. And because it's just... I'm going to stop this just so it's not being annoying. Okay, I can pause. Cool. Because it's playing it attached to my Spotify, when you open up Spotify on my laptop, you can see the same song is being played on my laptop. So you don't see a mouse like moving around and clicking things because it's doing it in the back end. But that's how they get around the API thing, is that they have like a virtual semantically understood, like these are where the buttons are. I'm recognizing the buttons. I'm clicking the buttons for you.
Yeah.
And then I'm pushing that to your rabbit.
Like macro type activities.
Yes.
It reminds me so much of like botting in video games. Like RuneScape used to just literally be like, if you don't want to do this really, really tedious grind of some
100%.
dumb activity like tree cutting, you would just download a bot that knows how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the bot that
Gonna
knows how to do
RuneScape
it.
bot real good. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer that right now there's only 4 apps that have UXs on it. So otherwise, it's got effectively the same functionality as the Humane AI pen. Although in our 4 apps,
Well, I would say it can do a lot just by interacting with those 800 apps that the Humane Pin couldn't.
but you
It
can't interact with
You
them.
can't.
They're trained, but you can't interact with them.
I can't do anything with them.
No, because you can't sign into your account. There has to be a UX to be able to sign into the account to interact with the app.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah, because then so that's funny. When I logged in, I logged into Spotify,
Yeah.
and it was kind of funny. I went into the web portal, and it was very clearly like I'm going through a macro instruction phase right now by signing in and like putting in. It wasn't just a normal username and password thing. It felt like it was.
Wait, did you sign in
recording.
through this?
No, I signed in the web portal.
Oh, okay.
And the mouse button was different. Like all these things were different about it, which felt like I am teaching it right now how to log into my account. And I did, and now it works. But I do realize now you need that UI just to log into any account in any app.
So it's like different. It's not just like the like normal little pop-up that comes up that's like link this or like sign in with your Google account.
That's
It
what
looked
I
just like
had
that. No, it looked just
my
like
rabbit
that.
hole, yeah.
But the mouse was different, and the window was like windowed off like 3 times. It looked kind of weird
So and that's in the like web,
in the web portal.
the rabbit hole portal.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so like you looked like you were on essentially like a virtual machine inside of a web portal.
That's actually what it is. It is a virtual
It is a virtual machine.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. That feels so weird.
Yeah.
I get it, but it feels weird. Like
It is a very smart way from a high level to get around the API problem. However, you run into some weird things. Like when you're setting up the rabbit, you have to do it on your laptop because if you do it on a phone, there is a mouse that is floating that you can't move.
Exactly.
oh.
So because unless you'd like plugged in a mouse to your Android phone and moved the mouse physically, it doesn't let you do that.
Here's a question, and I know we're only on 4 apps right now, right?
Yes.
Even though they said 800 trained or something like that, right? Which
Yeah.
hopefully comes out sometime soon.
Yeah.
Everyone loves the launch of a product with none of the things they promised originally.
Coming soon?
Yeah.
But like just for example, we just talked about YouTube completely changing their whole web layout design.
Yes.
What are we gonna get if YouTube's on there or DoorDash is a new updates their design and buttons are different?
The idea is like the way that scripts work. Like, for example, Fuji recently released a special edition X100V. They got scalped instantly when it went on sale. And the way that those scalpers work is you're predetermining what area of the screen to click, and then the macros just do it. But the way that they're doing this is they're semantically understanding what is this button. Like if I see this green button with a play logo, I know that's a play button, and therefore I know to click that. So even if it gets moved on the screen somewhere else, theoretically, it already knows to click that, and that means play.
Yeah, what if like let's take for instance the like button, or it used to be a 5-star rating on like YouTube, then switch to a thumbs up like button.
big
Like you
change.
can have a significant change.
It would have to be retrained, yeah.
Yeah.
fun.
So the training is a weird thing because we were talking about the Tesla full self-driving approach. They were originally, I think, just gonna like the training of how do I use this web app, and you can just train it yourself. That was something that was super exciting about this device that I think a lot of people were hyped on because it's like, oh, even if I have this really narrow use case that only me and a few other people do, if I just show it what I'm doing enough times, then it should be able to do it for me from my thing. But they kind of went into this thing about AI safety at the event, and they were like, we realized we don't want people making malicious scripts with this that they can train, so we're going to like red team this until later this year when we know it's safe to release. The problem, though, is if you do that, then you have 4 apps that you can use in a ChatGPT box.
Yeah,
That's basically
the
it.
problem with that is you said all this stuff was going to happen, got 100,000 pre-orders,
And
and then said it's not
coming
there
soon.
coming soon.
Yeah.
This is the fundamental like buying a device based on future promises thing where AI in general has all this gigantic future promise, and we're coming out with a device that's based on it super early and it delivers almost none of that promise. And
Yeah.
you could make a real emotional argument that this is worth buying based on the possible future of what it could be to you, but it makes it impossible to review right now because it just doesn't do that stuff.
Yeah.
And I do think the price is significant though. $200. I'm way more interested in spending $200 on something that could be something cool and
Sure,
maybe I could
yeah.
toy around with because it's $200
And there's not
and
a
not
subscription.
$800.
To give it a shot.
Yeah, I do think I guess you don't need the cellular data.
No, you can
right?
just use Wi-Fi if you want.
Okay, so you don't need to pay for a data card that will cost money
Yeah.
per month eventually, which feels like a little whatever.
Yeah.
I kind of like it. I love the color. It feels like it could be fun. $200 isn't the worst if you're down to like throw some money at something. I think this has my ultimate thought on it though is just like when I think of the AI pin, the humane pin, and this is that like the AI pin at least makes sense to not be your phone. This makes 0 sense to not just be an app on your phone because the AI pin's on your body and your phone can be in your backpack. You have to interact with this almost exactly like how you would interact with a phone. It has nothing extra. In fact, everything is worse than your phone. The screen, the camera, the processor,
Smartphones are still
every single part of this is worse than your phone.
Yeah.
And you still need to pull it out of your pocket to
Right.
use it. So you're using it exactly
And you
how
gotta charge
use your
it.
phone.
So every time you have to use it, you have to make that decision like, am I going to pull my phone out to do this or am I going to pull this other thing out of my other pocket to use this? So the
Yeah.
friction level to get to your phone is the same as getting
the
to this.
same.
So I'm going to pick my phone most of the time because my
Yeah.
phone's really good at pictures and videos and looking stuff
And
up.
the pin, at least their marketing thing was like, you don't need to keep reaching for your phone. It's on your body already. We already talked about all the shortcomings of that, but
That is a fair,
I think that's a fair
Yeah,
assessment
for sure.
between the two of them.
yeah.
After watching an episode of the Waveform podcast, viewers can engage further by sharing their thoughts on social media, discussing the content with friends or online communities,
Wow.
leaving feedback for the podcast creators, and subscribing to the podcast for future episodes. It's also a good idea to support the podcast by rating and reviewing it on podcast platforms to help reach a wider audience.
Sure, we never say that, but they should.
And sending them $100 in the mail. Whoa.
Wow.
That's a great idea, Rabbit. Thanks
Crazy.
for watching this clip.